For over 300 years, the United Kingdom has been shaped by the office of the Prime Minister. Each leader entered power during a unique moment in history, facing pressures created by war, reform, economic struggle, social change, and public expectation. Together, these leaders formed a continuous political story that explains how modern Britain came to be. At the start of the 18th century, Britain stood at a political crossroads. Power was divided between two rival factions. The Whigs believed in the authority of Parliament, commercial growth, and gradual progress. The Tories defended tradition, social hierarchy, and loyalty to the crown. Politics during this time was unstable, personal, and deeply influenced by shifting alliances rather than fixed ideology. From this rivalry emerged a new form of leadership, one that balanced royal authority with parliamentary control. In 1721, Sir Robert Walpole became Britain's first true Prime Minister. He brought stability after years of European conflict and economic uncertainty. Walpole understood power better than anyone before him, using negotiation, compromise, and political alliances to keep Parliament on his side. Though accused of corruption by his critics, he believed stability mattered more than popularity. He set lasting traditions, including making 10 Downing Street the official residence of the Prime Minister, quietly defining the role for centuries to follow. After Walpole, Britain entered a period of shifting leadership. Some prime ministers ruled briefly, while others exercised influence behind the scenes. Governments rose and fell quickly, often weakened by factional rivalry. As Britain expanded its global reach through trade and empire, war increasingly shaped political life. The 7 Years' War elevated Britain into a global power, but it also created heavy financial pressure and unrest within its overseas colonies. George Grenville's decision to impose taxes on the American colonies through the Stamp Act provoked anger and resistance. Colonists believed they were being taxed without representation, and tensions steadily escalated. This unrest grew into rebellion during the premiership of Lord North. Despite his intelligence and calm temperament, North failed to prevent the American War of Independence, leading to Britain's loss of its colonies and a profound national setback that reshaped Britain's global identity. Soon after, William Pitt the Younger rose to power at just 24 years old. Exceptionally talented and disciplined, Pitt stabilized Britain's finances and restored confidence in government. He guided the country through war against revolutionary France, and later returned to office to confront Napoleon. The relentless pressure of leadership exhausted him, and his early death marked the end of one of the most extraordinary and demanding careers in British political history. The early 19th century brought deep reform and moral change. Britain abolished the slave trade, modernized its legal system, and slowly expanded democratic participation. The Reform Act of 1832, passed under Earl Grey, reshaped Parliament by extending voting rights and reducing the dominance of aristocratic power. Though limited by modern standards, it marked a decisive shift toward a more representative political system and set the stage for future reform. During the Victorian era, politics became defined by powerful personalities and long ideological battles. Benjamin Disraeli and William Gladstone represented two competing visions of Britain. Disraeli emphasized empire, tradition, and national pride, while Gladstone focused on morality, reform, and individual responsibility. Their rivalry defined British politics for decades and shaped debates over class, religion, and the role of government in everyday life. As the 20th century approached, Britain introduced social reforms including pensions, national insurance, and labor protections. These changes laid the foundations of the modern welfare state. However, the First World War placed enormous strain on the nation. David Lloyd George emerged as a decisive leader, mobilizing industry and society for total war. Britain emerged victorious, but the peace that followed was fragile, unequal, and deeply contested. The interwar years were marked by economic hardship, unemployment, and political uncertainty. Neville Chamberlain became Prime Minister determined to avoid another devastating conflict. His policy of appeasement sought peace through diplomacy, believing compromise could prevent war. History would judge that effort harshly. When war became unavoidable, leadership passed to Winston Churchill, whose resolve and rhetoric carried Britain through its darkest hours. Churchill's leadership during the Second World War became legendary. His speeches inspired resistance, endurance, and national unity. Yet victory did not guarantee political survival. After the war, voters demanded change, not celebration. Churchill was replaced by Clement Attlee, whose government quietly transformed Britain from within. Attlee's administration created the National Health Service, expanded welfare, nationalized key industries, and rebuilt the nation after years of destruction. His calm, methodical leadership reshaped British society more permanently than any government before him, proving that reform could be revolutionary without being dramatic. In the late 20th century, Margaret Thatcher brought radical economic change. She reduced the power of trade unions, privatized industries, and promoted free market policies with firm conviction. Her leadership was decisive and controversial, dividing the nation but permanently altering Britain's political and economic direction. She was followed by John Major, whose quieter leadership sought stability amid recession and internal party conflict. Then came Tony Blair, who redefined modern politics through his New Labour movement. Blair's government delivered major reforms in education, healthcare, and peace in Northern Ireland, though his decision to join the Iraq War deeply divided public opinion and reshaped trust in leadership. In the 21st century, Britain faced new pressures. The global financial crisis, political fatigue, and growing polarization led to the Brexit referendum. David Cameron resigned after the vote. Theresa May struggled through parliamentary deadlock, and Boris Johnson ultimately completed Britain's departure from the European Union amid controversy and scandal. Political instability reached a peak when Liz Truss resigned after just 49 days, the shortest premiership in British history. Rishi Sunak followed, promising stability and control during economic turbulence, but his leadership ended after electoral defeat. In 2024, Keir Starmer became Prime Minister, promising renewal, discipline, and stability after years of political chaos. His leadership represents the latest chapter in a long and evolving story. From Walpole to Starmer, the history of Britain's prime ministers is the history of Britain itself, a nation constantly adapting to change, shaped by those who lead it and the challenges they face. And even after 3 centuries, that story is still being written.